Well, you've seen it on screen. It's Africa's blockchain breakdown, and that's exactly what we're doing. Taking what's happening in the blockchain space, breaking it down into digestible bits, giving you the interesting bits that you need to continue having those conversations, because you know what it's like. When you hang around with other blockchain people, it's all about, so what do you think about what's happening? So bottom line is we want to keep you up to date with what's happening. Gideon Greaves, the CEO for Crypto Valley VC Africa. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Kino. Looking forward to episode 2. So today we're going to be covering a very quick news flash, going into some of the price action of Bitcoin. Are we in the bull market, or are we still in crypto winter? Then we'll be going into a little bit about what's happening with good old Sam. How's that trial going? It's looking like it's concluded, of course. And then we'll be speaking to a very special guest today, one of the co-founders of Polygon. Anthony will be joining us as well. And a new section today. Expert in the field, Brenton Nyker, will be taking us through a market watch, going into some in-depth commentary on price action and everything that's going on in the market.
So basically keeping you on the cutting edge of everything blockchain and related. Time for us to have a look at our news flash.
Well, first of all, it looks like that crypto winter is reaching the end of that season. It looks like
I roll up my sleeves now.
It's time to roll up your sleeve. Get out
warmer. Okay, wonderful.
Get out the towels. Get out the umbrellas. We're going into the bullish season. That's my take. That's my opinion. I think that there's a lot of positive sentiment in the market with the impending Bitcoin ETFs, the exchange traded funds, as we spoke about last week. It's going to bring a lot of inflows from the legacy world, from the Web.2 world. A lot of people are now looking into cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, as a price hedge because of inflation, similar to gold. So there's a lot of positive sentiments in the market right now, specifically from the Web2 and legacy world. And that's what's really going to drive this next wave. This next bullish market is not going to come from the degens anymore. It's going to come from the real world.
The real world, which is what exactly? I mean, to the real world sitting and listening to us right now. I mean, here's the question, right? So like I said in the previous program, I'm kind of still skeptical around the whole Bitcoin/coin thing, because a lot of people will tell you it's like, betting on horses. You don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of that still sits in the market. The question is, how do we overcome that? How do we get new people into the space? To bet, as it were, on something which a lot of people are saying is a sure bet.
Sure. I mean, look, that's the thing about crypto and blockchain and Web3. It's a big one. There's a lot going on there. Cryptocurrencies have their niche in the market, and there's different utilities around the use cases for these specific coins or tokens, and Bitcoin being the store of value, or the new digital gold, the most obvious one for people to wrap their heads around. And that's why the legacy world is starting to come into that. But I think, to answer your question, use cases, Absolutely. Proper utility, that's going to drive the market. That being said, there is a lot of weird stuff happening right now. We're seeing the resurgence of meme coins again. We'll all remember Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, and our good friend Pepe the Frog, who's taken us all to the moon. They're coming back. And what that has told us in the past, it means that the the bull market is on its way back. Call them what you will. Someone told me once that these meme coins are art. So,
are they? Okay. I'll take your word.
We're investing in art.
I'm the blockchain guy, right? Not in the sense that I can work blockchain magic. It's the one, but it's the underlying technology that I support, that I know for me is it's tangible. But speaking about this space, can we sort of cue the church choir? What am I talking about? Sam Bankman-Fried, who's now not going to be freed for very much longer because he's been found guilty.
Well, that's, I think, in keynote, touching on my previous point, the conclusion of the Sam Bankman-Fried trial, of the FTX saga, is actually another point to validate that we are going into a bull market. That is now behind us. And that was a huge catalyst that drove a lot of people away from crypto. Even though it's a centralized exchange, However, it's firmly branded itself as a large catalyst in terms of what happens in the blockchain market, the crypto market. And when there was a lot of fraud and corruption around that whole trial, it made us look bad. It made the industry look bad. That's now behind us. Justice has won in this instance, and it looks like we're moving beyond that into a new era.
Well, indeed, the court's basically saying that the 31-year-old former cryptocurrency billionaire was talking codswallop in his court case, if I can just put it bluntly. Conspiracy, money laundering charges, some of the charges that he faced, 7 counts of fraud. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. But it's happened, and hopefully he's going to spend some serious time in a jail. And I think that, to your point, is brilliant. We need to show that, thieves, people who are trying to hoodwink us, will be held to account. And to me, that is a very important part of this particular puzzle when it comes to people buying into exactly what we've been saying, bullish about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, as you've mentioned. But we do need to know that justice prevails. Very, very key indeed.
100%, Kino. And that brings us to our next section, where we'll be talking more about the market and what has this whole FTX saga done to the market. We're going to cross over now to Brent Nike, our expert, who's going to talk about Market Watch.
Thank you very much, Gideon and Kino. And I think you've touched on some of the things that we're going to be looking at today. It's a good week to be a crypto investor, as it has been the past few weeks. And everyone wants to know always, what is the Bitcoin price doing and what's been driving that? And today we're going to look at a few points that speaks to exactly that. So first up, let's take a look at the Bitcoin price chart, specifically on the weekly time frame. And we can see for the 3rd week in a row, Bitcoin is holding steady above 34,000, in that 34 to 35,000 range. However, we're starting to see the inklings of the first red candle, which, if we go and look at Bitcoin dominance, which is basically how much of the market is made up of Bitcoin and how much is made up of altcoins, we can see that we've been up recently to a dominance level of 54%. So 54% of the market was made up of Bitcoin. And the last time we saw those kind of levels was all the way back here in mid-2021. However, we can see this big downward move in the last week. And what that really has been is that we can see 7 days, Bitcoin has been quite around 1%. But if we look at some of the alternative coins or the altcoins, Ripple, Solana, and even Cardano is up over 10%. Ripple is on a rip, so to speak. So we've seen Bitcoin sort of calming down a bit, with some of those gains potentially being rotated into some of these larger altcoins. But what has been driving some of this movement? So let's take a look at some of the news events. I think Kino and Gideon already touched on some of the things, but the first big news event specifically around price action this week has been around the Fed. So, our favorite people out there in the Fed have kept interest rates unchanged. And if we look at the predictions for the next rate hike meeting in December, the predictions are around 26% that they will increase interest rates in December. So the consensus is largely that interest rates are going to stay the same for the rest of the year. And interest rates globally staying the same or coming down is always good for what we call risk assets. So things like tech stocks, but of course, the granddaddy of risk assets being crypto and Bitcoin. So potentially some of the reasons we've seen some of the price action we've seen over the last week. And then looking into the hot topic of the last few weeks, ETFs. Valkyrie, which is a crypto asset manager, has recently amended their Bitcoin ETF filing. And this is alongside the likes of Bitwise, BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, Finec, and ARK Invest. In fact, the Valkyrie chief investment officer actually said, whether rightly or not, that they expect a Bitcoin ETF to be approved in November, which would be very, very bullish for the asset class. And then coming back to some more institutional news, we can see that institutions are starting to believe this as well. So the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, or CME, is basically where the institutional degens trade. Where we trade on the Binances and the Coinbases and the Krakens of the world, they trade on the CME. And the CME is now currently the second biggest Bitcoin futures exchange, meaning that institutions are this close to becoming the biggest Bitcoin futures traders in the world, which, if we look at previous market cycles, is unbelievable. And then finally, if we take a look at Bloomberg from the last week, crypto asset inflows into some of these big crypto funds has seen the biggest inflows since last year, July. So institutions are definitely very, very bullish on the space. 90% of these inflows have still been to Bitcoin products or Bitcoin related products. So institutions are still very much playing it safe when it comes to the crypto space, but very much getting more than just their feet wet. And then to finish off this week's Market Watch, we also, as venture capitalists, we also want to take a look at the VC market. And this, however, unfortunately, has been slightly dulled. So looking at the Q3 stats, crypto and blockchain deals roughly raised around $2.1 billion. And this was spread across 297, let's call it 300 deals in Q3 of 2023. While this might sound like a lot, we haven't seen levels this low since mid-2020. So VC numbers have regressed all the way back to 2020. They generally are a little bit delayed relative to the price action that we see in the market. So very possible that we see an uptick in VC funding activity very soon. However, as we can see, that has not materialized yet. So a lot of bullish sentiment in the market, a lot of really great events that could be propelling us into the next bull market, like Gideon and Kino referred to. So it may very well be time to take out those towels and the sunscreen. But with that, I'll hand it back over to Kino and Gideon.
Brenton, thank you so much for that, Brenton. And it's time for us now to move on to our industry voice. Find out more next. So coming up, and you can see right there, we are going to be chatting. First of all, like if I mentioned the name Polygon, a lot of you who are already in the industry, you know exactly who and what Polygon is and what they're about. But for those who are learning more about blockchain, for those who are getting immersed into it, how do I actually do a juxtaposition? Let's find an operating system we all like. Let's say iOS. You think that would be fair?
Fair.
They're like the iOS, right, of the blockchain space. They're layer 2 blockchain. And as a matter of fact, we are chatting to Antony Martin, who is one of the founders, co-founder of Polygon. Such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kino and Gideon, for having me here.
So may I start with a stupid question first, right? Because I get to ask the stupid questions because I'm the one still learning, Antony. So why do you exist as a business? What is Polygon all about?
Well, basically, there are no stupid questions, first of all, but basically, we are providing scalability, no? And we, at the same time, also now in Polygon 2.0, we want to be an aggregation layer where you are able to jump or to change from one rollup to the other, or one scalability solution to the other, let's say like that. And our business model is based on transactions. I mean, we are driven by volume, no? The more volume, the better. We are looking for very cheap transactions because we are looking for that people use our platform and adoption. Then this is our objective, and this is what we are looking for.
Amazing. So, with transactions, one looks at things such as potential fraud, etc. Gideon, if you want to pick up from there. And
yes, I mean, Anthony, we had this conversation the other day talking about, increasing transactions on chain and what those different use cases might transpire to be in Africa. And I know Polygon has a very positive view on how blockchain specifically can transform an emerging market like Africa. and there has been a strong view in the market. What are some of the use cases that are interesting to you as a layer 2 chain? So not only that are transformative to the market itself, but also that make sense for investment from Polygon.
Totally. Yes, I think that, and we were speaking about that before. No, in the past, we know all what happened in DeFi or NFTs, and we are still very involved on that. But especially in the case of Africa, for example, we see a huge potential on payments, on remittances, also on the traceability of the supply chain. I mean, these are the use cases that we are really trying to push and to support. And yes, if there is one continent where I see potential for these use cases, is especially Africa.
You know, we've obviously had, I don't want to get political at all because I'm not really a political animal, but I think the one thing we can talk about is what South Africa has gone through primarily since 2011. And you look at where the economy is today, 60% youth unemployment, et cetera, but the level of corruption that we've had. And I really am a firm believer, whether it comes to elections, whether, as you say, transactional transparency, et cetera, these sort of things need to be adopted. My only challenge, though, Gideon, and I said this the last time, how we get these adopted in state-owned entities and other spaces where we're dealing with loads of money is going to be very important. And I think that speaks to a leadership issue, because if you have people who want to go in and, spend time at the trough and ride a gravy train and keep taking money for themselves, they are less likely to look at solutions, blockchain-based solutions, to fight corruption. So I think at a government level where, corruption might be pervasive, not just South Africa, many other governments, and not only Africa for that matter, getting that adoption, Anthony, from a governmental perspective, I would imagine is probably one of the key challenges. Am I wrong? Or is there, some.
No, I think that you are going straight to the point, and also I am not a politician, but the fact is that the solution is there. I mean, meaning that if blockchain, the blockchain is a ledger, no? Sorry. No, meaning that all the transactions are stored there. Then for me, it's very easy to keep a traceability that if I give you whatever, $100 or to follow where that money is spent and to follow. Obviously, we can add a layer of privacy. That's not a problem. It's not that I will see everything that you are doing, but at least what I can see is that where you are spending the money has been KYC'd, meaning that is something that you are allowed to spend that money. Okay, and with this we are avoiding these leaks in the corruption where every actor in the chain is taking 10% of this total amount. No, then. Yes, I think, and you said that very clearly. For me, it's more a question of leadership, of really if there is this aim to implement the solution, because the solution is there, and in fact we are already speaking with different NGOs or with big international entities that they want to keep some traceability on this funding or donations, and the technical solution is there. Now it's more how this can be implemented, and if there are leaders or parties that want to implement that, we are ready to do it.
Just if I may just pick up on that, what we've done during COVID in South Africa, right? Governments worked very closely together with corporates. So corporates made a lot of money available to help, drive some of the solutions. I think one of the ways in is if the corporates get involved and one basically lobbies them to say, listen, it's your money that you're putting into this, whether it's SMME development, whether it's, trying to find a solution for healthcare, it's corporate money going in. One of the prerequisites should be that blockchain is used to create traceability. If not, then that money isn't touched by anybody. I don't know. I think that might be a way to open the door.
Yep. No, good point.
I agree.
Go ahead, Anthony.
No, my point is that you are right that the private sector at the end, you are accountable in front of your shareholders, no? Then yes, there is this aim to keep the traceability and also to justify where are you spending the money. The problem sometimes with public goods or public money is that it seems that it's from nobody, no? And you can do whatever you want, and nobody is asking you for what you have done. Then maybe yes, and you know South Africa by far better than me, but maybe it's a good starting point that the corporates are the ones asking for this accountability.
Absolutely.
I think that's a question that I often get is, what is the way in? You know, so we know how transformative the technology can be, but what is the way in? How do we get there? And I've heard this strategy mentioned a couple times, and I think it is sound. And effectively, what we're saying is start with the private markets, go to the large corporations that single-handedly, if they adopt this technology, can transform a market on their own. And then it becomes the benchmark as to what everyone else must do, and it starts putting change into the public, or policymakers start adopting this, and they start having to as well, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, I spoke to the chairman of the National Advisory Council on Innovation, long name for an organization, and government has just signed off on R1 billion fund of funds, right? That's done in partnership with the corporates. It might be interesting to go to them, to speak to someone like Tilson Magnoni and the SME fund to go, can we potentially look at introducing blockchain to create more? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to report back with what's happened to public money. This might be a good starting point to actually go to them and say, hey, we're happy to look at creating a solution which creates more transparency, and the reportability, just from an outcomes throughput perspective, will be a lot easier because it's all basically saved in the chain itself.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I know Polygon, Anthony, you have a very big focus on educating enterprises, or just developing education initiatives throughout the ecosystem. Enterprise specifically, I know there is a big focus with Polygon. Why is there so much focus in that space?
Well, at the end, we were speaking before about these use cases of NFTs or DeFi, but a little bit my obsession is that if we are not able to onboard the incumbents and the main enterprises, we will remain always like a niche. No, then because also, and there is also this lobby effect. No, that everything that is related with crypto, you are a scammer, like you were explaining before, no, and then you go to jail, or you are spending a lot of electricity, or you are only used for money laundering. Then there are these narratives that we need to break. And for me, the question how I want to do that is explaining all the advantages that blockchain is bringing. I mean, it's not that we need to use blockchain for all the use cases in the world. That's also a mistake. And of course, maybe some people, I see some use cases where I think, okay, maybe here with a database is more than enough. But in cases where you need traceability, where you need a very, very cheap transactions across the world, or also in a village, no, where maybe there is no infrastructure and people doesn't have the right tools to do that, I think that blockchain is an excellent solution. No? And then my work sometimes is to explain not only to government, to enterprises. We are going to the governments. Here always they are more reluctant. I agree with you that if there is innovation, it will come from the enterprises. And also, what we are not forgetting, no, is the people, are the developers, no. And for example, Jordi Bailina, that is the CTO of Polygon and the creator of the Polygon ZKVM, he will be precisely the last week of November in South Africa, going to different universities and teaching all this cutting-edge technology that is zero knowledge proof. No, then, yes, we are trying to onboard as many users, developers, enterprises as possible in order to create this ecosystem and to become more mainstream.
Well, I can almost see an opportunity for us to, in town doing the education, probably just getting you on the show. to just share some of the key points that you're trying to land, and then one can obviously use that to continue educating. So I'd like to say that the platform is available to you to use to help you just amplify the type of education that you're trying to bring to bear on others.
Perfect. No, that will be great. And as I said, maybe also you can have this meeting in the studio face-to-face with Jordi. If he has time, I think he will be there and could be an excellent opportunity to do that. I mean, up to you. Gideon is already in contact with him.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome. Anthony, I know you have to shoot, but one more question. As we go into this more bullish phase, or we all hope so at least, there is going to be a lot of activity on various chains. New applications will come out, as I mentioned, meme coins, and arguably could be the last sort of, let's say, quote unquote, crazy bullish run that we'll get as we get more adoption and the ecosystem becomes more and more mature. As we go into this next era or this next phase, what do you think is standout for Polygon? How does Polygon compete against the rest, and what's unique about the Polygon chain?
Yes, I think this is obviously a question that we have a lot, because some of our competitors in this game could be OP or Solana, Arbitrum. But how I see this is that, first is that we need to fight this together, because now we are fighting for this pie. But if we are able to increase the adoption, the pie could be, I don't know, the whole South Africa, okay, in a scale, meaning that, okay, there will be place for everyone. Also, I have a lot of respect for other layer 2 or ZK solutions like Starnet, ZK Sync, whatever, Scroll, all the work that they are doing. But at the same time, I think that I'm really proud of the team, because now we are the ones with the first ZK rollup in the market. It was launched in the 27th of March. Our prover has been consistently creating proofs. Then yes, now we also have this new strategy where we want to scale as much as possible, but at the same time integrating other partners, like could be Gnosis or anyone who wants to connect with our aggregation layer. It will be more than welcomed, because we think that we need infinite scalability like internet, but also unified liquidity. Otherwise, you know how difficult it is sometimes. If you have one asset, I don't know, in Solana, you need to bring it to Ethereum, and from Ethereum to Polygon, and then this is creating a lot of friction, of course. Then, yes, how I see Polygon is as one of the actors who wants to bring Ethereum to this next stage and the blockchain to become mainstream. I see more collaborating with others. Also, I understand that the users at the end, as you are doing with your credit card, I'm sure that users will use 3-4 rollups. Nowadays, you are using 2-3 different cards from different banks, depending on the case, maybe for NFTs, maybe for payments. Each use case, maybe there will be one network that is better. And what I am trying to say to my people is that we need to create the best product that we can, and then the adoption will come from the user. At the end, they are the ones who will decide where they want to go. But so far, I think that we are on the right track. We will announce a lot of improvements in the next months. Maybe we will increase, or finality will decrease to 1-2 seconds, and our throughput will increase to 10,000 per second, which is it's a lot. And then from this, I think we are in the right track. And yes, my aim is to bring Polygon to the final user and to increase the adoption. That's my target.
Well, Anthony, thank you very much for joining us. We're respectful of your time, so I think we pretty much on time. So thank you once again for just making the time available for us today.
Thanks
so much, Anthony.
Absolute pleasure. So time for us to do a bit of a deep dive as we wrap up. Jeez.
I think what seems to be the most pertinent topic when it comes to emerging markets and Africa when blockchain is involved, as Anthony alluded to, is corruption and fraud, and how blockchain can solve that. So today's deep dive, we're just going to have a candid conversation around how blockchain can be pivotal in solving these core problems to emerging markets, specifically Africa, which is fraud and corruption. And a large chunk of the continent's GDP is lost to that. And we just need more traceability, more accountability, and more transparency. And those are things that blockchain can promote. And I think it's like going back to basics. You know, when you look at crypto, when you look at Bitcoin, on the back of Bitcoin, professors were theorizing, well, what could this technology become outside of this digital currency, starting to look into blockchain. These are some of the things that were spoken about over a decade ago: transparency, traceability, etc. And now the conversation is starting to go back into that field to bring out the true use cases, real utility, and bringing these use cases into fruition is more important in Africa than anywhere else in the world, arguably. And one of the great examples is a portfolio company that we've invested in. I might have even mentioned them last week, but it's very digestible to understand. In Nigeria, there's a lot of corruption, specifically around land disputes. 60% of court cases are attributed to land disputes. On the most basic level, you can imagine that someone is promoting a property as the agent or the owner to sell it, and they don't have those rights to do that. It happened to the co-founder, in fact. He put down $18,000 to a property that was not being sold by the rightful owner and lost the money. Now that what House Africa has done is they've basically put everything on chain, so it's immutable. You can see who the true owner is. The title deeds are stored effectively on a decentralized database. Now, whilst this is a global use case, and I believe will be adopted globally, it needs to be done in Africa more than other parts of the world. And that's why we are going through this leapfrogging process of adopting this technology sooner than other parts. Developed markets, let's say Japan and the US, are not going to adopt this technology before us because they don't need to. They don't have a problem.
Legacy systems,
they work,
running.
But they also work, right?
They do, absolutely.
And the unique thing is that if we adopt this technology before them, which we are, in 5 years' time, where they upgrade their technology, like we all have to at some stage, right? You have to stop writing letters and you got to start sending emails. And when they do that, they'll look to us because we would have been implementing it and adopting it for 5 years, say, and we could actually export this technology.
You see, Gideon, on that point, and it's the same conversation I have about media and how media actually kind of focuses and goes back to pre-pandemic times, and they try to run their 30-second ads. You have to look at what is going to happen next within the next 10 to 15 years. Your 20-year-olds are going to be 30, 33. A lot of those 20-year-olds are going to be running companies, are going to be in management positions, are going to become politicians, hopefully ones we can trust these days, or by the time they get there. And they are going to demand these type of technologies globally. Right? And where do they look? It's going to be too late to go, oh, let's ditch the legacy system and try and create our own solution. You look to Africa. Africa, out of necessity, had to build all of this because of corruption, because of bad healthcare, because of a whole host of things, right? And this is where that leapfrog opportunity lies. I reckon within the next 10 to 15 years, if not sooner, will be the time where all of this hard work actually flourishes and we're able to leapfrog. But also, just listening to what Antoni said earlier, and also to just latch on to a point you've made, Gideon, it's all about the use cases. Standing there on a pulpit, trying to preach to people about transparency. Transparency is intangible. You can't touch transparency. You can't touch half of the stuff that blockchain is linked to. But the best way of landing it is to say, here's a use case. Could you imagine your business implementing this? And then you sort of juxtapose that solution, what it's achieved, with the current challenges that the businesses face. And I think that's when you start, slowly but surely, you start driving adoption a lot earlier, when they see the actual benefit. So good point earlier, Gideon, when Gideon mentioned, it's all about the use cases. Let's tell the story.
I agree, Kino, and the one word you mentioned which resonated with me is necessity. Necessity. That's why Africa is adopting this technology a lot quicker than others. And the use cases are black and white. The only reason it wouldn't be adopted is because there's certain blockers perhaps from policymakers, perhaps from government, perhaps there's not enough effort going into.
He's trying to say corrupt officials.
There we go. You said it. Or there's not enough education going into bridging that gap between Web 2 and Web 3. And like Anthony said, we'd run the risk of this being this sort of cyberpunk niche that no one really adopts. The power, the technology has the power to be transformative, but we do need adoption. It's necessary in Africa for it to be adopted. It can solve problems that other technologies cannot. So it's about creating that ecosystem, bridging that gap between Web 2 and Web 3, getting all the key actors and players involved into the space that can allow this technology to be adopted by the mainstream corporates and by the legacy world. So we're still figuring out how to do that. We're doing an okay job, I think, for now. But as this technology becomes more and more mainstream, more talked about, and less so in the breadth where you're saying that it's meme coins with frogs and dogs, or you use it to buy drugs online. I mean, the internet primarily was used to watch porn in the beginning.
Yes.
So people didn't say, well, the internet's rubbish. Some of them did. But I mean, we're getting there to a stage where it will be more adopted. And what's exciting about adopting it for us, if anyone in Africa talks about wanting to leave Africa, and we all know about the brain drain of continents, or countries rather than Africa, like South Africa, the most obvious thing that's spoken about is on the back of poor economic policies, which are driven from corruption and fraud. If you can fix those two things, completely transformative, the continent will change.
And so we're having this conversation with you, you're watching us, and the one thing we, I think, are going to work on is an interactive platform. We put ideas out. You hear people, give you your thoughts. The last show we had Monica Singer. She was amazing, talking about actually centralizing something which should be decentralized. Maybe not the cleverest way to go in reference to old Bankman-Fried. You've just heard Antony now talk about fighting corruption using blockchain. I'd love to see us be able to, just interact with you directly. To bring on board some of your ideas, because if we are working in a space which is decentralized, ideas should be decentralized as well, and we should bring that into the fore.
100%, 100%, totally.
Indeed.
I agree, and we'll work on that.
Indeed. This is me just, my ADHD. I'll make it up as we go along. But what a pleasure. We share that, by the way. He just looks a little less ADHD.
I think there's 3 of us on the show today that share that.
Brenton as well.
There we go.
3 ADHD peeps with a mic, or a couple of mics for that matter. Well, that brings us to the end of our Africa Blockchain Breakdown.
That's it, Kino. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Any comments, we'll take note of them. Wherever you're seeing this live, it will be streamed on YouTube, on X, on LinkedIn, and a couple other streams out there. So any comments, thoughts, suggestions, reach out to us. Otherwise, we will see you in about 2 weeks' time.
And we should do threads as well.
Threads as well, yeah.
Threads. Don't forget about threads. Anyway, that's it. Have a good one. Always a pleasure. See you next time.
Cheers, everybody.